The stars looked different from here. Captain Do-Yum Kim stood at the front window of the Earth spaceship Dauntless, watching the unknown space ahead. His ship was the first human vessel to travel faster than light, and now they were about to meet other beings from space for the first time. "Captain, we're picking up more signals," said Jae-Yun Park from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and her job was to listen to messages from space. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing screens as she worked. "They're using many different languages, but our computers are starting to understand them." Do-Yum walked over to her station. The screen showed waves of colored light that meant alien voices. "What are they saying?" he asked. "Most of it is traffic control, I think. Like an airport in space. But there's something else." Jae-Yun's face showed worry as she listened more carefully. "They keep saying one word over and over in different languages. The computer translates it as impossible." The captain looked at the main screen where a huge space station was getting closer. It looked like thousands of glass towers all pointing up into space. Lines of ships moved between the towers like cars on a highway. This was the home of the Galactic Council, where thousands of alien species worked together to run the galaxy. "Show me what they're looking at," Do-Young said. He had a feeling in his stomach that something was wrong. Jae-Yun pushed some buttons, and a new screen appeared. It showed the message Earth had sent ahead to the Council, a simple history of humans. There were pictures and videos of Earth's biggest moments. The first airplane flight, the first steps on the moon, the finding of a cure for cancer, and finally, the building of their faster-than-light engine. "They're all talking about our history?" Do-Yum asked. "Yes, but—" Jae-Yun paused to listen again. "They seem scared. I don't understand why." At that moment, Harin Cho, the ship's security officer, walked onto the bridge. She carried a tablet showing pictures of the alien ships around them. "Captain, the other ships are moving away from us. They're keeping their distance like we're dangerous." Do-Young looked out the window again. She was right. All around them, ships were changing course to stay far away from the Dauntless. It was like watching fish swim away from a shark. "Have we done something wrong?" he asked nobody in particular. Min Woo Choi, the science officer, spoke up from his station. He had been quiet until now, studying the alien ships through the ship's sensors. "Captain, I think I see a pattern. Every time a ship moves away from us, it's right after they receive our historical records." The captain sat in his chair, thinking. They had traveled across half the galaxy to meet these aliens, and now the aliens were afraid of them. But why? What was so scary about human history? "Jae-Yun," he said, "play their messages out loud. I want to hear what they're saying." The bridge filled with strange voices speaking alien languages. The computer translated them into Korean and English. "Impossible. They must be lying. Check the data again. No species could do this. They broke their own sound barrier. Without help. They went to their moon before they had computers. Look at these impossible projects. They just keep trying." Do-Young started to understand. These aliens weren't afraid of human weapons or technology. They were afraid of something else, something about the way humans thought. The ship's communication system made a loud noise. A message was coming in from the space station. "Captain," Jae-Yun said, "the Galactic Council is ready to meet us. They've sent landing instructions." Do-Young stood up straight and fixed his uniform. This was the moment they had prepared for. "Tell Ambassador Taiwan Lee to get ready. We're about to make history." As the Dauntless followed the landing instructions, Do-Young watched the alien ships continue to move away. He remembered something his grandmother used to say. The word impossible just means you haven't tried hard enough yet. The huge space station got closer and closer. Its glass towers sparkled in the light of nearby stars. Each tower was different. Some were straight, some curved, some had strange shapes the human eyes couldn't understand well. This was where thousands of alien species worked together to make rules for the galaxy. "Landing bay ahead," said the ship's pilot. They're guiding us in. The Dauntless flew into an opening in one of the towers. The landing bay was huge, big enough to hold hundreds of ships. But today, it was empty except for them. All the other ships had been moved away. They cleared the whole landing bay for us, Herin said, still watching her security screens. That's not normal procedure. They're being very careful. As the ship landed softly on the metal floor, Du Young saw groups of aliens gathering behind safety windows to watch them. They looked very different from each other. Some had many arms, some floated in the air, some glowed with different colors. But they all had one thing in common. They were staring at the human ship like it was both amazing and scary. Ambassador Taiwan Li came to the bridge. He wore Earth's new space diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim. "Captain," he said, "are we ready?" Do Young nodded. "Yes, but be careful. Something about us is making them nervous. They keep talking about things being impossible." Taiwan smiled. "Impossible. That's a word humans don't believe in." "Maybe that's the problem," Min Wu said from his science station. He was looking at more messages from the aliens. "Maybe they do believe in it." The ship's door started to open. Clean air from the space station came in with a quiet hiss. Outside, a group of alien officials waited to meet them. They stood far back from the ship, much farther than normal greeting distance. "Well," Du Young said to his crew, "let's go show them what humans can do." As they walked down the ship's ramp, Du Young thought about all the impossible things humans had done to get here. People had said it was impossible to fly, impossible to go to space, impossible to cure certain diseases, impossible to travel faster than light. But humans had done all of those things, and now they were about to do another impossible thing: join a galaxy full of aliens who were afraid of them. Not because humans were strong or dangerous, but because humans didn't know when to give up. The alien officials watched as the humans walked toward them. Some of them moved back a little more. Du Young heard them whispering that word again: impossible. He smiled. If they thought meeting humans was impossible, they were about to learn what that word really meant to Earth. Behind them, the Dauntless stood proud and tall, the first human ship to reach this far into space. On its side, written in many Earth languages, was the ship's motto: "Nothing is impossible." To the aliens, it sounded like a threat. To the humans, it was simply the truth. And that was just the beginning of how one word made the galaxy fear humanity. The meeting room in the Galactic Council building was bigger than any room on Earth. Ambassador Taiwan Li stood at the center, feeling very small. Around him, rising up like a giant bowl, were thousands of seats filled with alien representatives. They all looked down at him, and none of them looked happy. Captain Du Young Kim and his crew stood behind Taiwan. They were the only humans in the room. Jai Yun Park kept working with her translator device, making sure they could understand everything the aliens said. Herin Cho watched everyone carefully, looking for any signs of danger. Min Wu Choi took notes about all the different alien species he could see. The chief counselor sat at the highest point in the room. It looked like a giant crystal that could change colors. Right now, it was glowing with a deep blue light. When it spoke, its whole body flickered with different colors. "Humans of Earth," the chief counselor said, its voice coming through the translators. "You have asked to join the Galactic Council. We have reviewed your history. We have many questions." Taiwan bowed slightly. "We are happy to answer any questions you have." A small alien that looked like a floating cloud of purple gas spoke next. "In your history, you say your people once thought it was impossible to fly, but you kept trying until you could fly. Why didn't you just accept that it was impossible?" Taiwan looked confused. "Why would we accept that? We saw birds flying. We knew flight was possible. We just had to figure out how to do it ourselves." The room filled with worried whispers. The chief counselor's color changed to a lighter blue. "But your scientists proved it was impossible. They wrote papers about it. They did mathematics to show it could not be done. Why did you continue?" Because they were wrong, Taiwan said simply. Being wrong is part of learning. When someone says something is impossible, it just means we don't know how to do it yet. The whispers got louder. Some aliens started moving away from the center of the room, going higher up in their seats. A tall alien with 6 arms stood up. What about your moon mission? Your computers were weaker than the ones we use in children's toys. It was impossible to calculate the correct path. But you went anyway. How? Minwoo stepped forward. We used slide rules and paper. We did the math by hand. Yes, it was hard, but not impossible. Nothing is truly impossible if you try hard enough. The room exploded with noise. Hundreds of aliens were talking at once. Some were leaving their seats. Others were calling their home planets. The chief counselor turned bright yellow, which Jai Yun's translator said meant extreme worry. Please, the chief counselor said, tell us about your faster-than-light engine. Our scientists say it should not work. The math says it is impossible. But here you are. Do Young spoke up this time. The first design didn't work. Neither did the second, or the 100th. We failed for 40 years, but we learned from each failure. We kept trying new ideas. We never believed it was impossible. An alien that looked like a tree with eyes stood up. In our culture, when something is proven impossible, we stop. All species stop. It is the way of the galaxy. But you humans, you see impossible things as a challenge. Why? Taiwan thought about this. He needed to explain something that every human knew in their heart, but these aliens had never understood. Let me tell you a story, he said. On Earth, there is a very tall mountain called Everest. For thousands of years, people said it was impossible to climb to the top. Many died trying, but humans kept trying. And now we have climbed it thousands of times. But why? Asked the tree alien. What was at the top that was so important? Nothing, Taiwan said. We climbed it because it was there, because it was a challenge, because everyone said it was impossible. The chief counselor's color changed to deep red. You did it, just because someone said you couldn't. That's part of who we are, Herin said. When someone says we can't do something, we want to prove them wrong. Jai Yun had been quiet, listening to all the alien conversations in the room. Now she spoke up. They're sending messages to their home worlds, she told Du Young quietly. They're warning them about us. They think we're dangerous. The chief counselor floated down from its high seat until it was at the same level as the humans. Its color was now a swirling mix of red and blue. In all our history, across thousands of species and millions of years, we have never met beings like you. When we say something is impossible, we mean it cannot be done. It is a law of nature. But you humans, we see impossible as a starting point, Minwoo said. It's the beginning of discovery, not the end. The room went completely quiet. Every alien was staring at the humans. Some looked scared. Some looked amazed. Some looked like they were starting to understand something important. Show them, Du Young said to Minwoo. Show them what we're working on now. Minwoo pulled out a small device and projected an image into the air. It showed Earth's newest projects. Teleportation research, gravity control, time flow experiments. All things that the Galactic Council had labeled as impossible thousands of years ago. These are all impossible, said the floating purple gas alien. We proved they were impossible. Maybe, Taiwan said with a smile. But we haven't failed enough times yet to believe you. The chief counselor's color changed to white, which the translator couldn't interpret. We must discuss this privately, it said. Please wait outside. As the humans left the meeting room, they could hear the aliens arguing. Some wanted to keep humans out of the council. Others wanted to study them. A few wanted to learn from them. Outside in the waiting area, Du Young looked at his crew. Well, that was interesting. They're afraid of us, Herin said. Not because we're strong, but because we don't think like them. We don't just not think like them. Minwu added, "We think in a way they can't understand. To them, impossible is the end of trying. To us, it's just the beginning." Jai-yun was still listening to the alien conversations through her translator. "They're calling us the impossibility breakers now. Some of them think we're going to change the whole galaxy." "Maybe we will," Taiwan said. "Maybe that's why we're here. To show them that nothing is truly impossible." They waited for 3 hours while the council debated. Finally, they were called back in. The chief counselor had returned to its high seat, but its color was now a steady green. "We have reached a decision," it announced. "Humanity will be allowed to join the Galactic Council." The humans smiled, but the chief counselor wasn't finished. "However, you will be classified as a special category of species, probability manipulators. You will be watched carefully. And," it paused, its color flickering slightly, "we request that you warn us before you attempt anything impossible. We would like to prepare ourselves." As they walked back to their ship, Du-young thought about what this meant. Humans had just become the species that made the impossible possible, the species that didn't know when to quit, the species that saw the word impossible as a personal challenge. "What do we do now?" Herin asked. "Now," Du-young looked at the stars through the station's windows. "Now we show them what humanity can really do. We show them that impossible is just a word. And maybe, just maybe, we teach them how to break impossible things too." Because that was the real secret. Impossible things weren't really impossible. They were just waiting for someone stubborn enough to try anyway. And humans? Humans were very, very stubborn. 1 month after the council meeting, the Earth spaceship Dauntless was back in space. Captain Du-young Kim sat in his office, reading reports from Earth. Each report made him smile more and more. Humans were already changing how the galaxy worked, and they hadn't even tried yet. Someone knocked on his door. "Come in," he said. Jai-yun Park walked in, holding her datapad. She looked excited. "Captain, you need to see this. The alien news networks are talking about us again." Do-young gestured for her to sit down. "What are they saying now?" Jai-yun put her datapad on his desk and played a recording. Different alien voices spoke, translated into Korean and English. "Breaking news. Human scientists solve another impossible problem. The crystal people of Zorak 7 had proven that anti-gravity was impossible. Humans did it anyway. Warning. Human education facilities, called universities, are teaching young humans to ignore impossibility. They call it thinking outside the box. Alert. Humans have started asking about problems we marked as impossible. They want to try solving them. All species are advised to prepare for unexpected changes." Do-young leaned back in his chair. "Are they still afraid of us?" "Yes," Jai-yun said, "but it's different now. They're not just afraid. They're curious. Some species are starting to watch how we solve problems. They want to learn." The ship's communication system made a noise. "Captain," said Ho-rin's voice, "we have a visitor. A crystalline scientist from the council wants to come aboard. They say it's urgent." Do-young looked at Jai-yun. She nodded. "Let them come," he said. 10 minutes later, a crystalline being floated into Do-young's office. It looked like the chief counselor but smaller, and it glowed with a gentle purple light. Minwu came with it, his science officer's eyes bright with interest. "Captain," the crystalline said through a translator, "I am Scholar Breakthrough Center. I have been studying your species since your council meeting. I need to understand something. Please, sit down." Du-young said, then remembered crystallines didn't sit or float comfortably. The crystalline bobbed in what might have been a laugh. "Thank you. I have brought something to show you." It projected an image into the air, a timeline of galactic history. "For 1 million years," Breakthrough Center said, "we have kept a list of impossible things. When something is proven impossible, all species stop trying to do it. It is the way of the galaxy." The crystalline's color darkened. But then we met humans. Minwoo stepped forward. Can we see this list? The crystalline changed color to bright yellow. That is why I am here. In 1 month, humans have solved 3 things from our impossible list. Things we stopped trying to do thousands of years ago. Which things? Jae-yun asked, taking notes. You made a material that can be both liquid and solid at the same time. You found a way to store quantum information for more than a microsecond. And the crystalline flickered with different colors. You made a plant grow in space without gravity. Do-young nodded. Those were some of our easier projects. The crystalline turned almost white. Easier projects. There are more. Of course, Minwoo said. He pulled out his own data pad and showed their current research list. We're working on time manipulation, instant communication across any distance, and a way to see other dimensions. The crystalline moved back a little. But those are all on the impossible list. Our best scientists prove they cannot be done. Your scientists prove they couldn't do it with their current knowledge, Minwoo explained. But humans don't stop at current knowledge. We keep looking for new ways. Jae-yun had been quiet, thinking. Now she asked, why do your people stop when something is called impossible? The crystalline's color changed to a deep blue. Because that is what impossible means. It cannot be done. It is final. Why waste time and energy trying? But who decides it's impossible? Do-young asked. Who has the right to tell everyone to stop trying? The council. Bright through center started, then stopped. Its color swirled with confusion. We never questioned it. When the council says something is impossible, we accept it. Heren's voice came through the communication system again. Captain, we're getting more visitors. 3 different alien ships are asking to dock. They all want to talk about impossible things. Do-young looked at the crystalline. Would you like to stay and meet them? Maybe we can all learn from each other. Bright through center's color brightened. Yes, I would like that. Perhaps we have been wrong about impossible things. Over the next few hours, more aliens came to the Dauntless. They all wanted to know how humans kept trying when things were impossible. Each one brought their own impossible problems, hoping humans could help. Minwoo set up a screen in the ship's main meeting room to show how humans solved problems. He explained about trial and error, about learning from mistakes, about looking at things in new ways. See, he said, pointing to a failed experiment. This didn't work. But it failed in an interesting way. So we learned from the failure and tried something new. A small alien that looked like a ball of light asked, but how do you know when to stop trying? We don't, Jae-yun said. We keep trying until we succeed. But what if you never succeed? Asked another alien. Then we pass the problem to our children, Do-young explained. They try with new ideas and new technology. We never really stop trying. The aliens talked among themselves. Some seemed scared by this idea. Others seemed excited. A few started sharing their own impossible problems, asking for human ideas. As Do-young watched them talk, he realized something important was happening. Humans weren't just solving impossible problems. They were teaching others to try too. The crystalline floated over to him. Captain, it said, I think I understand now. When we say impossible, we put up a wall. When humans say impossible, they build a door. Not just a door, Do-young said. We build many doors, and we keep building them until one opens. Later that day, after the aliens had left, Do-young called a meeting with his crew. Something big is happening, he said. We're not just joining the galaxy, we're changing how it thinks. The aliens are starting to question things they never questioned before, Jae-yun said. They're asking why instead of just accepting. And some of them want to learn how to think like us, Minwoo added. They want to know how to keep trying. Heren looked worried. But not all of them. Some species are getting more afraid. They think we're going to break everything they believe in. Maybe we will, Du Young said. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The ship's communication system beeped again. This time, it was a message from Earth. More impossible things had been solved. More aliens were asking for help. More changes were coming. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Nothing was really impossible. It was all just waiting for someone to try hard enough, long enough, with enough different ideas. And humans never ran out of ideas, never ran out of ways to try, never stopped believing that impossible was just another word for not yet. The galaxy had good reason to be afraid. Humanity was coming, and they were bringing possibility with them. 6 months had passed since humans first met the Galactic Council. The Earth spaceship Dauntless was heading back to Earth after a long journey around the galaxy. But this wasn't the same galaxy they had first entered. Things had changed, and humans had changed them. Captain Du Young Kim stood at his usual spot on the bridge, watching the stars go by. His ship now carried something new, a special communication device that let them talk to any species instantly across any distance. The aliens had said this was impossible. Humans had made it work in 4 months. Captain Ji-Yun Park called from her station. You should see this. The galactic news networks are talking about the latest impossible thing. Do Young walked over to her screen. The news was showing pictures of a small planet that had been dead for thousands of years. Now it was covered in green plants and blue oceans. Humans had brought it back to life. They said it was impossible to bring dead planets back to life. Min Woo Choi said from his science station. Now we're teaching other species how to do it too. Harin Cho looked up from her security screens. Not everyone is happy about that. Some species are scared of how fast things are changing. She was right. The galaxy had split into 2 groups. Some species were excited about all the new possibilities. They wanted to learn from humans, to try impossible things themselves. Other species were frightened. They wanted things to stay the same, to keep believing in impossible things. The ship's new communication device made a soft sound. A message was coming in from the crystalline scientist, bright through center. The alien's image appeared on the main screen, glowing with excited colors. Captain Kim, the crystalline said, "Wonderful news. My students tried something impossible today. They failed, but they want to try again. They're not giving up." Do Young smiled. This was happening more and more. Aliens were learning that failing didn't mean something was impossible. It just meant you needed to try a different way. "That's great news," he said. "What are they trying to do?" "They want to make solid light," the crystalline said, its colors swirling happily. "The council proved it was impossible 10,000 years ago. But your scientist Minwoo showed us some new ideas, and now my students think they see a way." Minwoo looked proud. He had been teaching alien scientists how to think like humans. "Remember," he said, "even if this way doesn't work, there are always more ways to try." Suddenly, Harin's security alarm started beeping. "Captain," she said, "we have 5 ships coming toward us fast. They're from the Traditional Values Group." The Traditional Values Group was made up of species who didn't like how humans were changing things. They thought the galaxy should keep its old ways, including believing in impossible things. "They're sending a message," Ji-Yun said. She played it through the speakers. "Human vessel," a stern voice said, "you must stop teaching others to break impossibility. You are destroying our way of life. Some things must remain impossible." Do Young thought carefully about his answer. "This is Captain Kim of the Dauntless," he said. "We're not destroying your way of life. We're showing you that life can be more than you thought possible." "You don't understand," the voice said. "Our whole society is built on knowing what is impossible. If nothing is impossible, how do we know what is real?" Minwoo spoke up. "May I answer them, Captain?" Do Young nodded. "Think about this," Minwoo said to the other ships. 1,000 years ago, your people thought faster than light travel was impossible. Now you use it every day. Did that destroy your society, or did it make it better?" There was a long silence. Then another voice came from the ships. this one sounding younger. He's right. Remember what the humans taught us. Impossible just means we haven't figured it out yet. The first voice spoke again, but now it sounded less sure. But how do we know what to believe in? Believe in trying, Du Young said. Believe in learning. Believe in finding new ways. That's what humanity believes in. The 5 ships stopped moving toward them. They stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, the first voice spoke again. Perhaps we could learn more about your way of thinking. Of course, Du Young said. That's why we're here. Not to destroy your beliefs, but to show you new possibilities. As the ships turned around and left, Jia-yun looked at her captain. That happens more and more now, she said. They start scared, but then they start to understand. Because they're learning the truth about impossible things, Minwoo said. They're learning what every human child knows. Nothing stays impossible if you keep trying new ways. The communication device made another sound. This time, it was the Galactic Council calling. The chief counselor appeared on the screen, its colors calm and steady. Captain Kim, it said, we have been watching what humans have done in these 6 months. You have solved 57 impossible things. You have taught 12 species how to think differently. You have changed how we see the galaxy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Du Young asked. The chief counselor's colors shifted to a new pattern, one that meant hope. It is a necessary thing. The galaxy had stopped growing. We had stopped trying. We had let impossible things stay impossible. It paused. But humans showed us we were wrong. What happens now? Heron asked. Now. The chief counselor's colors brightened. Now we learn from you. The council has voted to remove the list of impossible things. From now on, nothing will be marked as impossible. It will only be marked as not yet solved. After the chief counselor ended the call, Du Young looked at his crew. They had done something that even humans might have thought impossible. They had changed how an entire galaxy thought. Captain, Jia-yun said, Earth is calling. They want to know if we're ready to try something new. What is it this time? He asked. They want to try traveling to other galaxies, she said. Everyone says it's impossible. Du Young smiled. Well, you know what that means. His whole crew smiled back. They all knew what that meant. Impossible was just the beginning. It was humanity's favorite challenge, their favorite puzzle to solve. As the Dauntless turned toward Earth, Du Young thought about how one simple word had changed everything. The aliens had been right to fear that word, impossible. Because when humans heard it, they didn't give up. They didn't stop trying. They just worked harder, fought deeper, and tried more ways until the impossible became possible. And now the whole galaxy was learning to do the same thing. Set course for Earth, Du Young said. We have some impossible things to solve. Because that was the truth about humanity that had made the galaxy fear them. When humans heard the word impossible, they didn't hear a wall. They heard a door waiting to be opened. And humans would never stop trying keys until they found the one that fit. The stars streaked by as the Dauntless headed home. Somewhere out there, alien scientists were trying impossible things. Alien students were learning to think in new ways. Alien explorers were looking at old problems with new eyes. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity did best, making the impossible possible, one try at a time.